So, relationship building. Okay. So we're talking today about relationship building and how it's the key to the success of your business. In any business, my firm belief is that relationship really is the key. It's all about relationships. I can help clients, and I have in the past, put out tons of pretty things and do tons of things on social media and print media and direct mail and all those things. But nothing comes and gets the same results as that interaction you have with people. So that's what I try to focus my business and my guidance and coaching on. It's what I've done with clients in the past, and we've seen phenomenal results at very little cost. So when does a relationship truly begin? If we had a little more time, we'd do some dialogue here, and I'd let you guys throw out some guesses. But because we don't, I'm going to just kind of feed you along the path here a little bit. How many people would have thought that the relationship sometimes begins before you even meet that person? Yeah, so you haven't met them yet, but yet that relationship's already started. In addition to that, if it doesn't start that way, then it's going to start when you're at an event or something. So let's think about before you meet the person. It could be that somebody else told them about you, and you would hope what they told them is a positive thing and that they had a positive interaction with you. But unfortunately, if they had a bad interaction, they're going to tell them about that too. So you got to think about both of those things. Or maybe they heard about you because they've seen some of your marketing. Did they see you on LinkedIn? Did they see you on Facebook? Did they see some of the comments you put on a meetup site? Did they see you through your website? All of those different opportunities are giving people an impression about you. So if you've looked at your business card or you've looked at your website and you're like, ooh, what are people thinking about me? It's time to kind of see some of the experts in the room here and to look to maybe get some of those changed, because you want that first impression and those first thoughts to be good ones. You want them to think that you're professional and that you're going to be able to help them in a professional way. If you're meeting them at an event, maybe it's an event that you're running, or maybe it's a networking event, or maybe it's a booth that you have out somewhere. These are all different sorts of places that you can meet people. And when you're networking, it might be when you're standing up doing your little commercial, or it might be when you're just having that one-on-one conversation. All these different places are where that first part of the relationship is starting. You want to make sure that all the things you're doing in those places are in line with your vision and mission, because if they're not, people are seeing you in a way that you don't necessarily want them to see you. Why is it important? Why do we care how people see us? There's a lot of reasons today. One of it is people are moving so quickly through their day. So if they need something, they're going to make a quick decision. They're going to make a decision based on someone they remember, based on that relationship that was connected. There's a lot of competition out there right now for the things that we all do. So you want to make sure that you can meet, that you're one of the great choices for them. They have a lot of choices. They have a lot of high expectations, and you want to make sure you can meet those. There's also the fact that people are going to buy people. So if you have a good relationship and they've met 4 other people who do the same thing you do, you want to make sure that they really interacted well with you and you had that connection, because they're going to connect with you. You want to make sure that you're top of mind. How do you stay top of mind? You stay top of mind by doing things like being in social media. You stay top of mind by creating a lot of noise, but you want to make sure that it's valuable and worthwhile noise. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. You want to be visible. So if you're coming to networking groups like Meetup and you come once, or like our Meetup group here, you come once and then maybe you don't come again for a long time, how many other people are there in between that are coming to the event that now they're thinking about them for the service instead of thinking about you? So you want to make sure that your presence is consistent. And as you're being consistently present, you want to make sure your message is consistent. And you also want to make sure, because a lot of the services that we're offering, let's think about it, a lot of them aren't necessities. They're things that cost money that they weren't planning in their budget for. So you need to make a point in your messaging to show why your services are valuable and why they truly need that. Now, we're going to talk about valuable interactions. When you interact with people, we all know, we've had groups here, and it's pretty much the mission of our WESOS group, what's in it for them versus what's in it for me, right? People are going to relate to you more if you're thinking about what's in it for them as opposed to what's in it for you. And you want to listen and take a lot of good notes. So where would you take good notes? Well, when people are up giving a one-on-one commercial, or when you're seeing people's information come through in their blogs or in their Facebook posts and things like that. Good opportunity to take notes. When you're having conversations, Now, doesn't mean you're going to necessarily take out a paper while someone's talking, start having your notes, but you want to mentally think about those things, and then you want to plan some time after a meeting to do something with all those notes that you took.
Is it bad manners then? Is it bad manners to take out a piece of paper? Because I do that all the time when someone starts talking and starts looking up.
I don't think so. I don't think it's bad manners at all. I'm just saying you don't necessarily need to. It's not something people are naturally going to do. I think, and that goes back to the relationship thing. So if you're saying, you know what, I want to take some notes on that. Give me a second to get paper and pen. And they know if that's what you're doing.
They'll be flattered.
They will be flattered. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes if you're, depending on the way you do it, I'm sure Jean doesn't do it that way, but sometimes in the way someone might do that, you're like, well, what the heck is she writing and what's she doing? And then it can cause some negative thoughts on that relationship and some negative reactions. So yeah, definitely okay if you do it in the right way. Now let's go back and talk about social media. We're going to talk about follow-up in a minute, but I want to talk about social media because that is a place where people see you. They see your relationships. They see your interactions. So think about the term social media for a second. Media pretty much just means a tool, right? And I mentioned a lot of different social media tools before, and we've heard about a lot of others that I didn't take time to mention. Now, social. Why is social media out there? Social is that relationship part of it. So the purpose of social media is to create relationships when you're not there. Does that replace an in-person relationship? Absolutely not. An in-person interaction? Does that replace picking up the phone like we all used to do, and now you can just do everything via email or everything through social media? Absolutely not. You still need to be picking up that phone. You still need to be seeing people in person. What social media does is it creates awareness and it strengthens that relationship. Now, I've seen a lot of studies, and some social media experts in the area here may disagree a little bit, and if you do, feel free to chime in. But I've seen a lot of studies that you're not necessarily going to get that sale from social media. And sometimes people think that. They think, I'm going to put out tons of flyers about my program and tons of notices, and then people are going to sign up. They're not. They're going to sign up if they know you. They're going to sign up if they've had a relationship with you. They're going to sign up if you picked up the phone and follow up and asked them. That's when they're going to sign up, not because you just blanketly threw out an email or you blanketly posted something on Facebook. So to that note, it's just a tool to accentuate things. So to that note, you want to follow the 40-40-20 principle. And those of you who have read Mary's blogs, you've seen what she's been promoting in there. 40-40-20, strongly believe in that. 40% should be information that's valuable. You're giving people information so that they see you as an expert and it's adding value to their life. Again, that what's in it for them. Another 40 should be conversational. And then the other 20 should be your promotion. So let's think about a lot of the things that we're seeing posted on our WeSo site. A lot of what we're posting is just, let's let people know, let's get out our promotion. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not the most effective thing for why the tool is there. And really, we're just kind of doing what we don't necessarily know any better to do. So that's why we have experts in the room to kind of help guide us a little different. Think about it. Here's how you should think about social media. If I'm standing here and I'm in WeSos and I'm having a conversation with anyone, how's that conversation going to go? Am I going to constantly say, hey, did you know I have a class coming up? Hey, did you know I have a class coming up? Hey, did you know I have a class coming up? I'm not going to do that when I'm standing in front of someone having a conversation. I'm going to listen. I'm going to try to get conversation from them. I'm going to see what they're interested in. I'm going to give them a little bit of information, and they're going to give me a little bit of information. That's what social media should be used for. It should be imitating the same exact interaction. Okay, so when you think about social media and you think about how you're going to use it, you want to think about, is it going to imitate the same exact thing that's happening when I'm in front of someone? And if so, then great, you're doing it the right way. And for that to happen, there's a lot of planning that has to happen ahead of time. And again, there's lots of experts in the room here who can help you with that planning and that strategizing and to make sure it's in line with your goals. So take a second, and on the right side of your sheet there, think about your business. Think about the things that I just mentioned. How are customers perceiving you before you're even out there? How are customers seeing you in terms of top of mind? And how are they viewing you in terms of what you're doing with social media and in your interactions? So just kind of think about that. And as long as you're thinking about that, if something comes to mind like, ooh, I want to do this, but I'm not doing that, write those things down too. That's what that right side of your paper is for there, like the little aha moments that are coming up as we're going through. So I'm going to give you a minute to think, a minute to think through that. And then I'm going to get into follow-up because there's going to be lots more good technical stuff to share with you guys in terms of following up and reinforcing. Thank you. Give you 15 more seconds, and then we're going to go on to follow-up. What's that timer going to?
20.
We should be good. All right, great. So now let's talk about follow-up, okay? We know what we should be doing ahead of time. We've kind of gotten those awarenesses. Have some more things for you to think through later if you are still writing some things down. Let's talk about follow-up. You've now met somebody, let's say you met them through email, or let's say you met them through being in a networking meeting, or you met them in an event. One of the most important things to do afterwards is to thank them. You can thank them through an email process. You can thank them through, gosh forbid, something that comes in the regular mail. Nice little, that's handwritten. We do those anymore. A lot of the examples I'm about to give in terms of follow-up and reinforcement, I want to put a disclaimer out there. If you've been looking saying, she's saying to do all these things and I have not seen her doing them, you'd be absolutely right. And the reason for that is, you would. So I'm putting that out there right away. Here's the reason. These are all things I'm telling you about that are tried and true that I've used in my entire career. And through using them, I've seen great results. And I'm going to give you examples of them and how I've used them in my career. With starting up my business, it's been going so well and people are wanting to do things. And so I'm trying to still get these systems in place. So I'm out here to tell you, if you're sitting there looking and saying, she's telling me to do this and she doesn't do it, you're absolutely right. But you won't be saying that a few months from now because all change takes time and all change takes process, and none of us are perfect. We've all heard those sorts of things before. And so I have done this kind of stuff before. I've seen great results for the companies I've worked for with it, and I'll give you examples of those. So in terms of thank you, a perfect example of that is United Way. When I first started working with them a few years back, they were looking to really raise their donations in the Romeoville and Bolingbrook area. Very limited staff in their office, less than 5, and they're covering all of Will County trying to do campaigns at different corporate workplace sites. So they didn't have a lot of time to focus on Romeoville and Bolingbrook. So now in my limited 10 hours a week, that's what I was doing for them. My system and my process was, when I would first go and I would meet people, I'd have the interaction, I'd have a one-on-one meeting I'd set up, and I would leave it. In my car, I would have my thank yous, and I would have my stamps. And I would sit in the parking lot at their place or down the street, and I would write a little thank you that was in my mind, fresh. I was feeling it in my heart. I had their address, had the stamp on, and I would go right to the mailbox and get that in the mailbox so that they could see that personal thank you later. Sometimes I would do an email one as well, because some people, maybe they don't go through their mail for weeks. And because that used to be when I was busy at the Y, I wasn't checking that pile of mail sometimes for a couple of weeks. So I want to make sure they get the other interaction as well.
I've always thought about doing thank you cards too, but how do you get his address?
That's a very good example. So I had a one-on-one with Evie Burke, and we had a great time. And I get in the car, and I'm just like, I'm going to start following this process now. And I look at her business card, and I'm like, oh, crud. Most of us aren't putting emails on our addresses on our business cards anymore, especially if we're working at home. So you need to start a little bit of a process with that. And thank you for asking. So what I decided to start doing is when I'm meeting with someone to simply say, and again, I haven't been following this, but it's my plan to start following. When meeting with someone to simply say, hey, I like to keep in contact with those that I meet, and sometimes we'll send stuff in the mail. Can I get your address? I'd like to have that for my records. And funny enough, Evie had the same thought process I did, and she went to do the same thing, realized she didn't have my address, and she sent me an email after and said, hey, can I get your address? I'm like, I wanted yours too. So Great minds think alike. So yes, thank you. That was a good point. Absolutely. They do. Thank you so much for saying that, because that's always the reaction that I got too from everybody. It was like, oh my God, it's a lost art in this day and age. And it makes you stand out and you want to differentiate yourself.
I just wanted to say what we started doing is like Christmas cards. And I thought, everyone sends a Christmas card. So now what I'll do with the clients, I'll send them a Valentine's Day card or something different. And people are just like, oh, they're so happy. Like,
Yep.
Something, or maybe for St. Patty's
Yep.
Day or a weird day that
Yes.
they don't expect. It.
Thank you. And that was one of the, yes. That was one of the things I was going to touch on in retentions or in reinforcing is retention. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is everyone's sending Christmas cards. I just started shifting that with my own personal ones that I send out at Christmas. So, and saying it's too busy. So I was going to do Valentine cards actually. So very good idea. And then I thought about Easter, and someone mentioned 4th of July. So there's tons of holidays out there where you can be different. Chinese New Year, there you go.
Thanksgiving, I've always
Yes.
done Thanksgiving. Yeah. And then part of that is also a little Thanksgiving letter. And
Yes.
people look for that every year.
Mm-hmm. Thanksgiving is a great time.
The Christmas letters. You'll be
Yes.
the first one for them to read before all the other ones get
Yes.
inundated.
Absolutely, absolutely. So another thing is capturing contact info. So I just talked about one way of like getting that address if you have it. But you want to make sure when you leave a meeting or when you get somebody's contact information, you do something with it right away, okay? And our presentation that's coming up in the future, Mary's going to be covering a lot of those things, and she's going to be going through some different systems and things on what to do once you capture that information, but it's important to do it right away. Build that time into your day. When you know you have a networking event, plan at least a half hour to an hour afterwards for follow-up. That means logging your contacts. That means sending follow-up emails to people. That means getting them on your email list. There's a lot of that kind of information that's important to do. Then you want to log at the same time you're doing that. Log any notes. I mentioned earlier, take notes, right? So if you took notes on the person, you go ahead and you log the notes, okay? When I worked at the Red Cross and United Way, I doubled their donations in that area. I forgot to mention that point by doing that. So that was huge for them. So when I worked at Red Cross, I did a really good job with this logging notes thing and kind of started that system. And that was way back in 2003, I believe, when I was looking at my LinkedIn earlier for statistics. And there wasn't social media that was being used at that point. We were using fax machines, and I was faxing things out to people. And it was my job to build services in Will and Kane County and to go out and to just give free Red Cross classes. So, and again, it was an area that wasn't being served. So they had served 3,200 people the year before I got there, and in the year I was there, we more than doubled that to over 7,000. So, and that was through intentional follow-up and all these things that I'm talking about. With either of these, the United Way or the Red Cross, there weren't marketing dollars. It was all just me and my personal interaction, and it didn't cost money. It doesn't cost money to be you and to be genuine. You also want to make sure that, and there's different systems that you can use. I've done Excel sheets before where I'll here's when I first start talking to them, and now they're becoming a more warm contact, and I copy and paste them to a different tab, and then I keep moving them. I've done something as simple as a little box like this with index cards, and you can just write right on there, and it sticks in your glove compartment. And I've done bigger boxes. I've done file folders. It depends on what works for you, but have a system. I was meeting with someone regarding Melaleuca recently, and I had her there with someone else, and I had just met her in the parking lot. And it's a friend of one of my child's mom's friend, knew her through baseball. And she just stopped me in the parking lot. For 45 minutes, we talked. I did not have pen and paper to write down everything she said, but I wrote it down in the car afterwards. So when I met with her later, and she had lots of specific nutrition questions, so I met with her with Jen, brought Jen to give her the nutrition stuff I had no clue about. And as I was rattling off all these different things, she's like, how do you remember all of this? She's like, you must take really good notes. And it's like, yeah, you need to, because it's important. So you want to stand out. You want to make people realize that. Going into reinforcement, there's the 4 things on there for reinforcement, because I know we're going to start running out of time. Going into reinforcement, there's 5 things. So you're going to need an extra bullet. One is recruitment, okay? So you want to think about how are you reinforcing when you're recruiting people. You also want to think about how you're reinforcing when you are trying to retain people, okay? How are you reinforcing with your past customers? Because everyone realizes even though they're a past customer, they're still someone you're going to pay attention to because they may be a customer again in the future, right? Past customers are very important. Think about doing pre-made materials and using technology to your advantage, okay? And I'm going to go up to recruitment and retention and past customers again in a second, but just to put a couple other tips out there, one of the things that I did, I mentioned what I did at United Way, I would also have pre-made packets. So I knew my goal was to go meet with all these different companies. I would have a folder sitting there with all the information. And so now I'm totally busy, I'm doing all these other things. Oh wait, I don't have to prepare for that. I'm just grabbing my folder and I'm on my way. And like I said, having things like those envelopes and thank yous already in your car. And that could be even like having things ahead of time when you're going to networking groups. Oh, I know I'm going to need this, so have a packet there and you just take it. So those little things. But technology too. Technology is a great way to share stories. Okay? You want to tell your story. You want people to know about your story. And that's where that social media can be beneficial because you're giving them information that's useful to them, but it's related to your business. And now they see you as the expert. And you use technology, surveys, that's something that I help people with and I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, but surveys are so valuable, helping you kind of figure out what it is your clients actually need. Newsletters and blogs and photos and making sure those are going out on a regular basis, but that they're used in an intentional way. Intentional is so, so huge. One of the things, so I mentioned recruitment and retention and past customers, and there's lots of things you can do with all those, such as drip campaigns and landing pages and when it comes into retention, you're going to do a lot of the same things you do with recruitment, but you're going to do them different because it's a different group you're trying to reach now, right? So you got to think through each of these and come up with the process. So I worked for a Catholic school in LaGrange, and I did fundraising for them as well as marketing, as well as helping them get enrollment in the door. And when I was hired, one of the things they said is, we keep getting all these phone calls, and the secretaries aren't doing anything with them. They don't know what to say when they answer the phone. They don't know what to do. So one of my first tasks when I was there was to create a process for all of this. So I did. I created from once the phone rings, or once that person comes into you, maybe it's through a phone call, and maybe it's through an email, or sometimes they just stood in the door. So I had a process, and if they get a phone call, here's what you do. If the phone ring, if they walk in the door, this is what you do. If there's an email, this is what you do. And there would be all these different touch points. So when you think about touch points and points that you want to touch clients in your business, you want to think about what are you going to do when that first inquiry comes in, okay? And you might want to write this on your right side because I didn't put touch points in there as a point, but touch points are important. So what are you going to do with that first inquiry when it comes in? And then after that first inquiry comes in, what are you going to do after that? That's where the thank yous come in, and that's where the continuing to follow up. So let's say they took a tour of the school, and now after they toured, they might have said, yes, I want to enroll in your school. Or they may have said, you know what, I'm on the fence, I'm still looking at some other schools. Or they may have said, absolutely no. So with each of those three things, I had a little flow chart of now what do they do. And most of them were connected to scripts, where I would do a script of what the person was actually supposed to say. Once they became an actual enrolled person, now they had a different thing to where, like on their first day of school, we would send an email with a photo. I would go and take a picture of them in the classroom. All these things that would kind of make us stand out. We'd have a teacher send a note the first week and say, oh, this was a great first week, or even another student write a little letter and send it home. Any of those things that you can do that make you stand out and make you seem unique, you want those to be part of your touch points. 3 keys with your touch points. It's key when they first inquire and after inquiry, but it's also key those first 90 days, okay? And whether this is a group that you're just trying to recruit, you met them in a networking meeting and you're trying to start cultivating them, you want to kind of think, what am I doing in the first 90 days with these people? Or whether it's somebody that now they're customers. What are you doing with the first 90 days of those customers? And even past customers, what are you doing in those first 90 days? 90 days is a real crucial point. And you break that down into 30, 60, those sorts of things, and you come up with different things that you should do, and that all makes a difference. And when you're doing it, you want to make sure you're doing things that are differentiating you. Look at what other people in your area are doing. Don't do the same thing, because that's not going to make you seem unique and special, okay? Facebook is a great way to reinforce these things. Email is a great way to reinforce these things. But again, you have to have in mind what's in it for them, not just what's in it for me. And that is, I mentioned a lot of these things are very inexpensive. They're easy to do. The examples I gave you, they were all done with no cost. I worked at the YMCA for 7 years, and when I worked there as their VP of Marketing and Member Relations, we started out with 3 branches and $600,000 in membership revenue. By the time I left 7 years later, we had 5 branches and $2.7 million in revenue. So it's huge. Now, obviously, well, not obviously, but to get to that kind of revenue, you had to spend some marketing dollars, okay? But a lot of the things we did in addition to that, it was simple things like I would go in and do a new staff orientation and train staff on how to talk with members. Huge. I would tell our people who are in the swimming classes, invite people to our big event coming up because I can spend money on a billboard, I can spend money on TV ads, but they're not going to come. They're going to come if you, their swim instructor, says, hey, come to class. So that's the little intentional things to try to build in.
I just want to break it real quick because it is a little bit after 11. If you have to leave me after 1,
Yeah. After 1. And that was, yeah, that was, we're good. We're good.
Also, if
Yeah.
you have a minute, you know, if you have to leave, you have to leave. But if people have questions, do you guys feel like we can hang around for a few minutes if anybody has questions?
This was so valuable.
Good. Good.
So valuable.
Good. Good. Questions? I covered it all, I think, that I had on here to share. Yeah.
I just have two quick points.
Yes.
When you take the notes for the business cards, just a tip to put something that stood out during your conversation with an individual when you exchanged business cards.
Yes.
So that when you do follow up with them, you can mention that, oh, we met at Whistles and I remember you said X, Y, Z, so that
Yes.
they know number one,
Absolutely.
you're listening to them.
Yeah.
And also on social
Absolutely.
media, sometimes you're following people on Twitter, and there needs to be a personal touch in there as well. And I personally thank everybody for the follow, the retweet, the mention. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we're getting to the point where we just send out a mass, there's an automated response to thank somebody, and I think that loses the human touch. Take
Mm-hmm.
the time to say, thank you for the follow, I appreciate it, thank you for the retweet, shout outs to XYZ, so that they know that you're
Absolutely.
listening to them and there's a human person behind
Yeah.
this social media thing.
Yeah, and if those examples are tied into their family and something you learned about their family while you were there as opposed to a concrete business kind of thing, even better. That was great, thank you. And that kind of reminded me of getting people on your email list. I can't tell you how many cards I've given out here or talking to different clients, and they've gotten all these cards, but, well, I didn't know I can put them on my email list. It is a very opt-in world, and you do want to opt in, but there's no reason why you can't send an email afterwards with a link to your weekly newsletter and say, hey, it was so good to meet you today. Happy we made the connection. You give the example of XYZ so they knew you were listening, and then here's a link to sign up on my newsletter, and here's some of the things that you're going to find, and encourage them to sign up, because there's so many of us in this room that or so many times you're out meeting with people, and a lot of times those contacts are lost because they get there and now that time you invested is lost as well.
So if you have a one-on-one with them, it's okay to then take their email and add it to your database. But
If they
you're-
say it's okay.
If they also say, because if we
Yeah.
were to take everybody's and then start sending this, that would be.
That's considered spam. Yeah, you don't want to do that. That's considered spam. But there's no reason why you can't. Well, there's no reason why you don't want to just put them on the email list. But there's no reason why you can't to that whole group say, I was glad to meet you guys today. Here's a thing to sign up to my newsletter if you want to. Or put that on the WESOS Facebook group.
Yeah.
Mary.
You can send them one email saying, would you like to join my newsletter? That's not spam.
Right.
But doing it every other week, sorry, Lisa, join my newsletter, that would be irritating.
Right. And that comes into the note taking and the follow-up. Know who you already sent that email to, so you're only sending it once so that they're not doing that. Thank you, Mary. Very good point.
We had a member one time, and I didn't think it was a big deal. She said that I'm going to throw you guys on my newsletter, just opt out if you don't want to get it anymore.
Shot or.
That's, well,
Well, I wasn't going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's an okay approach, but here's the downside. Because she asked for permission, you put her on there, you can't opt out. But here's what you need to remember. If you go with that tactic, what's going to happen is if people all of a sudden aren't opening your emails, now your open rate is going down. So you want a high open rate. So if you're just putting anybody on there and they're not opening, it's not helping you. So it's much better to go in the way we just described, only for the simple reason that now the people who actually sign are people who wanted to be on there, and you're going to have a higher open rate.
And you've built a relationship, you've asked the person,
Yes.
you didn't just blanket and get everybody on there.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And blogging, if I could just speak to that for a second. I went to a seminar that the chamber was Romeoville Chamber was doing yesterday over at Lewis University, and one of the graduate professors was leading it. And it was on social media and using e-commerce, and talked a lot about blogging as well, and how blogging is a great tool. Blogging is where you're really out there, and you're should be more on a kind of like Facebook. On a daily basis, you're giving that information, and people are coming to your blogs and they're seeing it. One of the things he had pointed out that I hadn't thought about before is kind of keeping your Google Alerts up there. I don't know who hasn't used Google Alert, who's used Google Alerts before, but Google Alerts, and did you say Feedly? Was that the one?
Feedly is a
Feedly.
reader. It's not
Okay.
an alert, it's a reader.
So you want to kind of track what others in your area are doing. So in Google Alerts, his suggestion was go in and put in, like, if you're a nutrition person, put in nutrition and wellness and these things. So you're going to get alerts when other people have things that are posted about that. A lot of times, you go shop on a site and, I'm going to buy office chairs, and you see all the comments from people. So when you go to these places that you got your alerts from, go in those comment sections and add to it. Now again, you want to add valuable information. You want to add something valuable, but then say, if you want more information, I'd be happy to talk to you. Here's my email address and my website. Now you're bringing new people you've never even met before into your world by going and doing blogging on other people's blog posts. So if you're just starting blogs, that's a good way to do it.
And blogs are excellent way to get your information out, because then people start to know you. In addition to Twitter, and I can't overemphasize why everybody should be on Twitter. You get to participate in tweet chats, which is, it's just a forum. You can just do a hashtag search and join in on the conversation. And the more you join in on the conversation, the more people know, you have something to say, and the more people want to know about what you do. And in that way, it generates more publicity for you and what you're about.
Right. And with the blogging, thank you for adding that. With the blogging, you want to make sure that you're not blogging and saying, hey, come to my class. You're blogging and giving them valuable information, showing yourself as the expert. And every once in a while, you can have like a little link to something. Again, that 40-40-20. And sometimes that might be 80 instead of 40-40. So if your clientele likes to have conversations better, then you might have 80% conversations and not as much information. Or if your group likes to have information better, they like to constantly see recipes, you might have more of that and less interaction. It's what's in it for them. You got to figure that out and work that out. You mentioned Tumblr at our last meeting, and I'm sure a lot of people aren't familiar with that, and that's kind of related to blogging, correct? Can you just quickly let us know about Tumblr?
Yeah, Tumblr is
Then we got it quick. Okay.
Tumblr is something you can set up. It's kind of like, it's a blogging website, but it's very friendly. You don't need to have any HTML experience or anything like that. Just set it up and begin to put content. And also, what you could do is you could follow other people and see what they're blogging about and reblog that onto your blog. So it's kind of like you having, it's kind of like a retweet. It's kind of, so it's a reblog. That way, you're getting an awareness about who you are, and at the same time, it's kind of like you're having a guest blogger on your particular blog. So you set it up and just have people, your interest, and see what they're saying. If it's something that you want your audience to know, reblog it onto your post, and that way it acknowledges who they are, and then at the same time, it gives you some information. But also the key there, the most important key there is the content and the variety. Even if you're blogging about fashion, bring in something, makeup, accessories, so that people have something interesting to see every time they come to your blog.
Right. Lots of stuff, obviously, and we're all starting. Thank you for elaborating on that. It sounds like a great topic for later for us all to learn more on. We can't jump, we got to take baby steps. We're all at a different place with all of this stuff, and that's why I love the relationship part of it. It's all about what you're doing in person. You can use all these other things to accentuate what you're doing, but it comes down to just that golden rule. Do unto others as you want done to you, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to just be genuine and to relate with people. So, thank you.
Yay!